And Eric, I think we could say the same thing about the wide receiver room. There's not a number one guy coming back who's going to catch 75 balls and a number two guy that's going to catch about 50, that sort of production. Now we'll see what they've got, but I see tons of names, and the most recent coming into the fold was a guy that we touched upon before we started to record, and Chase Cota coming in from UCLA, a 15 to 20 catch guy, 67 catches in a career at UCLA. But there's a plethora of those kind of guys, Chris Hudson, Troy Franklin, Dante Thornton, that they've been on the field, they've been in big games, they've made some plays, some splashes, but not a real go-to guy as of yet. It doesn't appear.
I agree. There is not a go-to guy. Chris Hudson is probably the closest thing you could have in that regard. He was second in the team in receiving yards and receptions and receiving touchdowns last year. But the sample size, as you put on the screen, is not massive. I mean, he was a guy who was, I think, started 8 games, was kind of a partial starter half the year. And then when there was some kind of midseason attrition and turnover with players transferring and injuries and players going pro, he really stepped up and had a really strong finish to the season. So if there is a go-to, it might be Chris Hudson, but I think we go into spring not knowing that answer and feeling like it could be one of maybe 2 to 4 guys. I think Hudson, Franklin, Thornton, and I think Chase Cota, it was this kind of a quiet addition Oregon made about a week ago, going and grabbing a player from UCLA, and Cota's certainly has some familiarity with the state. He went to school at South Medford. His dad played for the Ducks. His cousin is Brady Breeze, who was just on the team a couple of years ago, Rose Bowl defensive MVP. So certainly ties to the program, but he might be required to contribute more than he ever did at UCLA. And I'm sure that was part of the recruiting pitch of, hey, come up here and you could have a chance to be our 1, 2, or 3 guy. And I don't know if he really ever filled into that role with the Bruins. So he's certainly an interesting name to watch. I think it's an interesting group. I think you've got about 4 or 5 guys you feel pretty good about, Mark, and then you need to find, as Oregon learned this last year, probably 2 to 3 more guys to kind of fill it out. So I think it's not only finding the top guy, it's finding kind of where the depth comes from, because it's a group that, like running back, you don't have huge numbers. You only have 8 receivers right now back on the roster.